prizes. You want to be invited to book festivals.
I'm here to talk about the books I read in March. I had a lot of books on my TBR. I didn't finish everything, but I did read a few books that were absolutely incredible, and I just want to talk about them because I find that it's very difficult to be a writer and simultaneously be a reader. And when I'm working on fiction, like in the thick of it, I find that my reading sort of just like falls to the wayside. But this month I did get some reading done. In particular, I want to talk about the first 3 books that fiction pieces that happened sequentially, and they had this recurring theme in them that I absolutely adored. And the first book was Parade by Rachel Cusk, and then I read The Hour of the Star by Clarice Lispector, and then I read The Cardinals by Bessie. So these 3 books were really interesting because they contemplated womanhood, and they contemplated the ways that we kind of box in women. In particular, The Cardinals and The Hour of the Star, there were these 2 female protagonists who we watch through the lens of the men around them, or the man around them. One man, the narrator in The Hour of the Star, is telling the story of Maccabea, who is this very homely and unbeautiful and unremarkable type of woman, but in the eye of her narrator, she's actually quite charming, but he still sees her in the context of the rest of the world and doesn't understand how she has no desire and how she's, just kind of existing in the world. She's in this really awful relationship with this one guy. And then when the book as the book transpires and gets to the end, and the moment where hope and thinking of the future starts to play a part in her life, the thing that transpires is just so impactful. It's so interesting to see how she comes alive at this particular moment. But I really enjoyed that. And then in The Cardinals, the character, her name starts as Miriam, and then it's Charlotte, and then everyone calls her Mouse. And so she's this orphan, or she's thrown away as a baby. And she goes through her life, being, feeling as if she's been abandoned and thrown away, and she doesn't know how to love or to make connections with people and to feel compassion and all of these things. And she ends up working at this newspaper where a guy, one of the journalists, falls in love with her. It's very complicated to describe this relationship without spoiling the novel if you haven't read it. But if you have read it, that relationship was just so intriguing, because also knowing that Bessie is making commentary on the laws in South Africa at the time, the apartheid laws that said Black and whites couldn't, be together, couldn't consummate any kind of relationships, or it was the Immortality Act. She was making commentary on this particular law with the very murky relationship that's going on between this journalist and Mouse. And I can't really explain it without giving it away, but I do recommend reading this book. It's a bit dark, and it's a bit weird to really contemplate what's going down, because she's talking about love and belonging and all of these concepts and experiences in a way that you want to open yourself up to, but at the same time, because of the nature of this relationship, you're like, but not here, not like this. But I really, this is my second time reading this book, and this time, having read it after reading The Hour of the Star, and particularly after reading Parade by Rachel Cusk, I was in a different dimension with it. This book is about artists, and it's about the lives of artists. In particular, she was inspired by this artist from back in the day, Giorgio Vasari, I believe is his name, and this lore of him having painted an entire painting upside down. And so hearing that, she just thought that in some way that explained or reflected her own life experience and just what it means to, not just paint something and turn it around, but like to literally paint upside down an image. There's a character in here. All of the characters have this name of G. At one point, G is an artist that's painting his wife, and he's painting his wife ugly. And then there's G, who is, I believe, a Black artist and contemplating how much marginalized artists aren't allowed to float within the abstract and use their imagination, but they have to contend with reality first and display what reality has done to their own lived experience. And then there's this storyline that's happening with a mother who's dying and her children reflecting on the relationship they had with her, knowing that she was always in limbo. She was always trying to be an artist, but also having to be a mother, and just what sacrifices she had to make. And there's this one particular scene that the kids are outside of the door, knowing that their mother is a different person on the other side of it, and then having to hold themselves back. And there's just so much happening in this. And I'm actually in awe of how she's able to capture all of it. And there was something that she said during the talk that I listened to, in that she's not concerned with being an easy read, which was what I wanted initially, and thinking that writers are supposed to make it easy on the reader whenever they're done putting together a piece of fiction. But she says she's reassured by the difficulty. Like when she's writing, it's a challenge to figure out what she's writing about and to discover it. And so she wants the reader to work for it as well. And you will work for it in this book, but it will be so worth it. Then let's talk about some books that I did not finish. I definitely tried to read some romance novels this month, but it didn't go very well. I started Red, White, and Royal Blue, but then I did not finish it because it was so predictable and I just felt as if I was wasting my time. And then I didn't even get started with Kennedy Ryan's before I let go. I think I need to be in the right circumstances to read these books, maybe like on a beach with a cocktail, the sun's out and I don't have anything going on. But sitting in my apartment and trying to get lost in this world just wasn't it. And I also think it's because I'm in the midst of writing fiction myself right now, and it's very difficult sometimes to read fiction or to be immersed within another story when you're also trying to create another story. So I'm still working that out because, this whole writing thing is very new to me, but the reading thing is not. And when I'm ready to DNF a book, I'm ready to DNF a book. But these books are on my DNF pile right now, but who's to say? Maybe some wonderful weather day in the future, I will get back to them. I'm currently reading The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa, and this book came out about 5 or 6 years ago, and I'm not sure what took me so long to get to it because I absolutely love it. It's kind of giving 1984 dystopian vibes, and there's a writer or novelist, that's our protagonist. She is working on a novel, and her editor is at risk of being scooped up by these memory police. And what's happening in the world right now is there are objects that are just going away, like birds are going away, or mirrors, or roses. Just objects are disappearing, and then they're also leaving from the memory. But when the memory police realize that certain people, whether it's in their DNA or by whatever circumstance, their memories aren't being wiped, they're going after people, and her editor happens to be one. So she hides her editor in her basement, and that is the part that I'm at right now. But it's starting to really pick up, and I'm really excited to see where this one goes. But I'm really enjoying just the language and how beautiful the prose is, and I'm getting swept away in it. So that's where I'm at with that. And then I reread, or I should say I skimmed over Daring Greatly because I went to a book club meeting for this book. And it was really nice because I think from time to time you need a reminder, you need that boost of courage and confidence. And just to give yourself permission to let some of your walls down and your barriers, the things that are built up because shame is imposed on us. And it's not always in a malicious way, but you don't realize how much you are protecting yourself and you've put all these defense mechanisms up. But this was a nice reminder for me to be a bit more vulnerable and to be a bit more open and living out loud. So that was really interesting. And then I read these 2 books on writing, and they're not on craft, but they're on like the writer's life, and I really enjoyed how much of an embrace, especially this one, I devoured it in like a day. Haruki Murakami's The Novelist as a Vocation and Lamott's Bird by Bird. And these two books were really like right on time in my life because I've been working on these new fiction projects, and you get really lost in the weeds, and you don't always need books that are going to tell you about craft or show you how to write a sentence or a paragraph or to, you know, structure your acts and all of that. Sometimes you just need a book that will commiserate with you and tell you, yeah, that first draft is shitty, and yeah, you get really lonely, and yeah, you're running out of money, and yeah, like to just validate all of those feelings. And that's what these two books were like for me. But you can find out more about these books. I did a review of Bird by Bird on the channel, and I also recently posted my video in which I tried the writing routine of Murakami. And you can also subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Stay a while, join me, and that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.